best buddy. Now my best buddy. You are.
Yeah!
You are my. We do this. A big guy. Will.
Let's come up with our own secret handshake at some point.
Can we?
Secret misfit handshake.
So we're at AMG Games. We're going to talk about Shatterpoint today, which is a game that we were super stoked about because I love Marvel Crisis Protocol, but then they're like pretty much taking that and using it. I'm like, they should do this with Star Wars. And as he knows already, I love suggesting properties to make these games out of. I've already suggested 5. So Star Wars, but Star Wars is my first love. So we got to go into Star Wars. So man, tell us about Shatterpoint as if I know nothing about it.
All right. So Star Wars Shatterpoint is kind of an homage to Saturday morning animated shows, right? If you're familiar with Star Wars Legion, that's kind of the big galactic scale army game. It's all about zoomed out strategery, you're moving units, you're commanding and controlling, trying to control zones. It's a little bit slower, it's a little bit more it's a little bit more thought-provoking.
It's more like a miniature war game.
More like a miniature war game.
Which
it's
is
definitely
a little bit slower.
Which can be daunting. Which can be daunting. Which can be a little bit
You have to consider things more, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Star Wars Shatterpoint is kind of the complete reverse. It is super zoomed in, it's totally character focused, it's fast, it's frenetic. There are consequences, but those consequences aren't nearly as dramatic, right? If a character falls in battle in Shatterpoint, you know for sure you're going to see them again next week and the next episode.
Yeah.
So the stakes are a little different. This game is really about diving into the character and the story of Star Wars combat. So we did a lot of things to make it so that it feels like you're actually making choices and fighting in lightsaber combat or using your blaster fire to drive people back, to push them around, utilizing your squads to the best of their abilities. So it's a very fun and unique take. I think we managed to pull a lot of innovation on this one in ways that make it very accessible for new players or people who have never done miniatures games, and bring new challenges and questions for players who have been playing miniatures games forever. And the primary way that really focuses in is because of this order deck here. So in Shatterpoint, every single character has its own order card. Additionally, every order deck has a Shatterpoint card, which we'll talk about. But these are important because instead of being able to just choose which character you want to activate on your turn, instead, you're kind of bound by what you flip over in your order card. So for example, if I flip over Anakin Skywalker here, he's the character on my turn that I'm going to activate. My opponent's dealing with the same thing. You don't have complete control over what your characters are going to do. You have to think of it kind of think about all those great moments in the Clone Wars or other animated shows where you watch them fight and you're like, these people don't have a plan. The plan went away so long ago. They're just trying to succeed. They're doing whatever they can.
I will say I was unsure about that at first as a also partial war gamer. Being able to choose and strategize was a big part. I'm not sure how much, but after playing it, I absolutely loved it. Yeah, it was silly. But yeah, go ahead. There you go.
Yeah. So it's very different. It's definitely kind of a unique thing to Shatterpoint with this order deck and how it controls the pace. But it also means that you as the player, you don't have to worry about necessarily, it's not a game about strategy, it's a game about tactics. And what that means is instead of trying to concoct your perfect turn and make it all work out, what you're doing instead is you're kind of you're rolling with what fate or the force is giving you to work with, and you're solving puzzles on the table as they come up. And your opponent's doing the same thing. So it's a lot about, okay, this isn't what I wanted, but it's what I got. How do I make the best out of it? And that engagement, that puzzle solving becomes really rewarding as you become better and better at piloting your different characters. Now, you as a player are not completely limited by the order deck. You can reserve an order card that you just flipped. So let's say that we reserve Anakin Skywalker. We have these force points here. In Shatterpoint, the force is kind of represented as the will of the force. So this isn't the idea behind Jedi, right? We're not controlling the force. We're not using it to manipulate our surroundings. Instead, this is the energy field that surrounds and binds all living things. And we know from the Star Wars galaxy that the force has a will of its own. It has a desire to influence events in a way that it sees fit. You as the player are kind of representing that by using your force points here. Force points are determined by the primary characters that you choose for your squads. So in this case, we have 7 on our Anakin Ahsoka side. Spending a force point, you simply flip it over to show that it's exhausted. That allows us to put Anakin Skywalker in reserve. Now in reserve, we can choose to activate him whenever we want on our turn. So reserve is a very powerful manipulation mechanic that kind of gets around the idea of the order deck being completely random. Once we reserve a card, we flip our next card, we see now that we have our 501st Clone Troopers. Woohoo! 501st Clone Troopers are now going to activate. When a unit activates, it gets to make 2 actions. Actions are pretty simple. There's move, there's attack, and then there's a couple of other conditional actions that we'll talk about too, but moving and attacking are the primary ones you want to focus on. In Shatterpoint, you can only do each action once though. So you can't move twice, you can't attack twice, which means that you really have to think about how you're going to plan out your turns. Every character in Shatterpoint has a stat card, similar to like what we just talked about. So this gives you a list of all of their abilities. They have active, reactive, and innate abilities. Active and reactive abilities do have a force cost. So for example, defensive maneuver on our clone troopers costs 1 force. Coordinated fire doesn't cost any force because we don't see the force icon here. Innate abilities are free and they're always on. Characters have a stamina, they have a durability, so this is how much damage they can take. Yep. Durability is how many wounds they can take before they get defeated and removed from the table. And then the back of the card has all of your like general squad building info that you lead as you get into building your own squads. Right. In addition to that, every character also has this stance card here. So I mentioned that combat in Shatterpoint was one of the things we really wanted to focus on. We wanted to talk about the narrative of combat in Star Wars. So the stance cards in Shatterpoint, every character has a combat tree, or every unit has a combat tree. This is how they apply their successes from attacking, and we'll walk through that in a second. Yep. It also shows you their melee and their ranged attacks, and then all characters have these expertise charts down here, which interact with the way the dice work. And these provide additional benefits to their dice rolls based on how many expertise they roll. So let's go ahead and move the clone troopers. Movement in Shatterpoint is really simple. You simply take the movement tool, the advanced tool. You can bend the knuckle however you want. Our goal here is going to be to try to get to these points. So we're going to move to here, and we're going to have this clone trooper move to here. Now normally, you cannot advance, you can't use this long tool to get up and down elevation. So we see that the gantries are much higher than where we started. If we wanted to get up there, we could do a climb action, which uses the short tool, but allows us to climb up things. Or we can use what in Shatterpoint are called ingress points. So these ladders here, we actually, if we end within range 1 of them, which you use all the range tools to measure range, we can pop up the ladder, and we can basically use it as additional movement to go up and down. So where these ladders are, where your ingress points are, and where your terrain is with the elevation, matters a whole ton to how you're going to have to strategize on the table and how you're going to have to do your tactics.
Oh yeah.
In order to control these zones that are turned on so we can score some points, we need to be within range 2 of them. So we see that both of our characters are now within range to control these points, which is great. Let's go ahead and we're going to have the clone troopers now make an attack.
Got the clankers.
We're going to shoot some clankers. Take that, clankers. So we're going to see here, this clone trooper is just slightly out of range because he's not within range 5. This clone trooper, however, will be able to make a shot. So we go to our stance card. We see we have a ranged attack. This is where our range 5 came from. We're going to get 7 attack dice. So there are 2 different types of dice in Star Wars Shatterpoint. There are attack dice, which are D8s, and there are defense dice, which are D6s. So we're going to shoot at Kalani. If we look at Kalani's card, we see that Kalani has a ranged defense of 4. So he's going to roll 4 dice. Our clone trooper is going to roll 7 dice. So we roll our 7 dice, we roll our 4 dice. Let's talk about what these dice results look like. So every die has a crit on the attack. Crits are the best result you can roll because they can't be canceled by blocks. So they're almost always automatic successes. There are strikes. These are just successes that can be canceled by blocks. And there are fails. These are misses. And then, of course, you have expertise. So if we look at our clone troopers dice roll here, we see we have 4 strikes, and we have 2 expertise, and 1 fail. For our expertise, we go to our expertise charts. We're using our ranged attack, so we go to our DC 15A blaster, and we see that 1 to 3 expertise results gives us 1 strike. So those 2 expertise add 1 additional strike to our roll. So we now have 5 strikes. We look at Kalani's dice. On the defense side, there are blocks which cancel strikes, there are expertise, and there are fail results. So if we look at our expertise results over here, we see that 1 to 2 expertise results for our self-preservation gives us 1 block. So Kalani winds up with 3 blocks and 1 fail. Each block will cancel a strike, so we'll remove 3 of those, we'll remove 3 of those. We have 2 successes left, so that means that we're now going to be able to go 2 boxes down our combat tree. So you always start from the orange box, and you apply the results in those boxes as you move. So we got a pin. So Kalani gains this pin token, which says that the next time he would move, he can't move. He just removes the pin. And we get 2 damage. So we would put 2 damage into the damage pool. And then once our attack is resolved, all damage in the damage pool goes on to Kalani. So in this case, we only had 2 results, so we're done. So Kalani's going to take his 2 damage. We're going to put that on his card, and we see that he now has 8 stamina, or he's got 10 stamina, so he can take 8 more damage points before he is wounded. With
now you can also take the other tree as well, correct?
Yeah, so if we had gotten, say we had gotten 3 results, when we get to here, we have a choice because it branches. So you as the player could choose to do a shove, which would have shoved Kalani back 1 inch, and then we could have followed up 1 inch.
Right.
Or we could have given him a strain, which is another special condition that says the next time he makes an attack or a move, he takes 3 damage.
Yeah.
So a lot of different charts really represent the characters. So if we look at, let's say, Rex's chart here, we see that Rex, with his tactical supremacy, he has 2 very distinct trees that he can go down. He can do this more damage-oriented one, or he can do this more control-y one, where he shoves the character and he heals a bunch, and they kind of terminate at the same point. Anakin, on the other hand, has all of this damage up front and only a couple of branches on his Form 5 GMSO. However, primary characters like Asajj, Anakin, all those, have an additional cool thing that they can do in that their stance card is double-sided. So they actually get 2 different combat forms that you as the player can choose from throughout the game. And we can see here that on his other side, his Form 5 Xian, Anakin's tree really changes, and he becomes able to either shove characters a lot, manipulate them, or he can do a lot of healing, which allows him to either remove damage from himself or other characters that are around him.
Yeah.
And the stats also change. So this is far more defensive on this side, this is far more offensive on this side. So these kind of choices really make the core characters feel very interesting and unique.
How often can you swap that?
So you get to swap it once per turn. So anytime during your turn. And anytime doesn't mean anytime, it means like as long as you're not interrupting something. So you can't switch it mid-attack, right?
Yeah.
But this leads to the whole thing of like, Anakin can go in there with his Form 5 GMSO active, do a lot of damage to a character, and then flip his stance to his more defensive side if he happens to start on that way. And then, of course, you're going to manipulate that throughout the way.
Right.
Let's talk about one other really cool thing about Shatterpoint, which is tactic abilities. So one of the big things that we wanted out of this game is we wanted the squads to feel like they were working together and to really benefit players who chose thematic squads. So we have this tag system.
That's a big part of Star Wars, especially.
Yeah, where we have all these different tags. So we have Battle Droid, Droid, and Separatist Alliance for Kalani. So every unit has tags associated to it. Most abilities in Shatterpoints reference 1 or more tags. So for example, our tactic ability on Kalani is Roger, Roger. Roger, Roger. It says at the start of this unit's activation, allied battle droid supporting characters that are within range 4 of him get to make a dash. So when he activates, before he even does anything, these 2 B1s, which are also battle droids, and their supporting units, they get to make a free dash. It's not even their activation, but they just get free movement because Kalani's there ordering them around. Now Kalani would get to take his turn, so he can make his move, he can make his attack, we could attack the clone troopers back. But additionally, there's also a lot of abilities in Shatterpoint that allow characters or units to help or move other units that they have. Kalani has another great one called Tactical Network. It's an active ability and it costs 1 force. So by expending 1 force, he's able to use Tactical Network, which says choose another allied battle droid character within range 4. The chosen character gets to dash. So for example, we could choose this battle droid right here with Tactical Network. Remember, it's not their activation. We're still on Kalani's activation. They can advance to here. And then the ability says that they can either gain a hunker, they can remove a condition from themselves, a condition like pin or something, or, and this is the best one, they can make a 5-dice attack.
Wow.
So these B1s can make a 5-dice attack targeting this clone trooper.
And that doesn't even count as their activation.
And it's not even their activation. Now after they make their attack, Kalani still has his 2 actions.
Oh, wow.
So Kalani can now attack as well.
Wow.
Additionally, because we're not done with the Battle Droid Parade here, Kalani has an innate ability called Target Concentrate All Firepower. This says that whenever an allied Battle Droid character attacks, and another allied battle droid character is within range of the target character, you get to add 1 dice to your attack roll.
Oh my goodness.
So when these guys make their
I think I
5
might put those together.
Yeah.
when these guys make their 5 dice attack, because another allied battle droid character is within range of this clone trooper, that 5 dice attack becomes a 6 dice attack.
Good.
When Kalani makes his attack, his 7 dice attack will become an 8 dice attack.
Yep.
So you can see how the squad idea, the idea behind the squads working cohesively, even though each character activates individually, is really baked into Shatterpoint. And I think this is one of the coolest things about building squads and thinking about how you construct things. Because again, this is a game that allows players to take whatever they want.
Right.
So if you want to take Asajj Ventress and Anakin Skywalker and mix and match their different squad mates, you can do that.
Yeah, you go over the whole Jedi squad,
Yep.
or go the whole Sith squad, or whatever.
And so you can mix and match to kind of create the characters and use the squads and strike teams that you want. Of course, you're always wanting to think about, though, what does that mean for my abilities? When can I activate these things? Do I have enough of these tags? Do I care? And sometimes you don't. There are characters like Lord Maul, who comes in the core set. He has no abilities that affect anyone. He only cares about himself.
He only cares about himself
Yeah,
because it's Maul.
he's
Oh, yeah.
just
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
it's
totally.
Maul. It's all
It's
Maul
Maul.
all the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
Maul
when you
show.
use him in a squad or a strike team,
Yeah.
you're not really worried about what you're taking with him. You're thinking more about what will benefit him, what will work well with what he wants to do.
Some meat shields, probably. Some guys that could take some hits.
So it opens all these
throw 'em all
ideas.
there, yeah.
The last thing we'll kind of talk about. So we've talked about how the gameplay kind of goes, but how do you win? What's the point of the game?
That's kind of important.
It is, because we
Yeah,
love
win condition kind of makes it a game, I think.
we love playing the game, but we don't want to be stuck here forever.
No, but we also love winning.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly,
it's-
exactly.
it's-
So you'll see that we have these zones here that are turned on. In Shatterpoint, players play with a mission pack, and at the start of the game, one player chooses which mission pack they're going to play. Each mission pack has a bunch of different cards that are associated with it. So there are 3 phases or struggles. So Shatterpoint at its core is the best 2 out of 3. As you play with your opponent, your goal is to win 2 of 3 struggles. Your struggles are randomly determined, but they determine how those objectives are going to be turned on. So you'll see that we got the little plus symbol, but we could have gotten these little Tetris piece symbols here. So you never quite know what you're going to be expected to do. Now, once one player wins the struggle, and they do that by controlling these zones and scoring points in their turn. So this is the struggle tracker. So think of Shatterpoint like a game of tug-of-war. As the momentum shifts, you're going to score points, and this little struggle cube is going to go back and forth. So maybe the Separatist Alliance player scores 4 points on their turn, the Republic player scores 3 points, the Separatist Alliance scores 4 more points, and we can see that we're getting closer and closer to the end of the track. When one player pulls the struggle cube all the way to the end of the track, they win the struggle. And they take the card. At that point, we flip over the next struggle card that we had, so we would go from phase 1 to phase 2. The losing player would pick one of the 2 maps to activate. All of the original ones would turn off. The new ones would turn on, and then play would resume with a reset scoreboard.
Yeah.
Characters don't reset, so all the damage on them, all the special conditions, where they are on the map or the battlefield doesn't change. So it creates this situation where dynamically your priorities shift.
I absolutely love that.
And you have
aspect.
to reorient what you're doing.
I absolutely love that aspect. I thought that was
So
really
you,
super
you
cool.
don't get new characters in the
No.
next round. You just
No.
play with them
you just
as
shift
they
to the
are,
next goal onto the next
and
goal.
go to another
You
goal.
think about all those classic animated shows that we talked about, right? They're fighting. They have to break through the door that's locked. They break through the door that's locked, and now all of a sudden there's a new complication.
Yeah.
And what they were trying to do before is very different
Yeah.
than what they're trying to do now.
And it forces you in a good way to reshape your strategy, to reshape your goals. So, completely shifts, and it can shift the whole dynamic of the game, because maybe at that point, after you got that first goal, you're in a completely horrible position for the second one, which gives the other player a chance to kind of catch up or do his own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you play war games, you get on that losing back end. Sometimes it's really hard to come back. But if you have an entirely new goal, well, guess what? That completely changes the game for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely love that part. This game is amazing. You guys did. You were extremely creative with this. I loved it. And I was kind of watching, because I said I like Marvel Crisis Protocol as well, and that's awesome. But I was like, okay, what's going to be different? And that's really what I look for in a lot of games, especially war games, because there's so many, you know, out there, and I'm kind of tweak things, and that's good and all. But I'm always looking for something that you think outside the box. And you completely went you blew the box away on this one with the flow charts, with the changing goals, and I was like, dude, this is really something special. I absolutely loved it because it's so easy to put Star Wars onto something and we'll like it anyway, but to actually make a game that's creative enough to say and go, wow, this game has got it all.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we really wanted to be innovative and try new things and create a game that we thought would appeal to not only veteran hobbyists and wargamers, but also people who've never experienced a wargame before. We asked ourselves a lot of questions about, like, when doing the sculpts, how do we make them accessible for people who've never painted? How do we make them exciting for people who've been painting for 40 years? How do we take ideas and break conventions that you see in game after game after game and do different twists?
And that's tough.
It was a really fun and arduous experience, but I'm very happy with where we wound up. And I think we have something that truly captures what I was hoping for, which was the Saturday morning cartoon experience.
And totally expect this to get riffed on. Somebody's going to take I guarantee you're going to see somebody else going to be like, I got these cards in there, and be like, oh, wait, dude, I totally showed that in Shatterpoint. So I have no doubt that you're starting at least a good trend in the genre to shift away from all that preconceived stuff that you have to have, especially with the rulers. And for guys who are just board gamers, you could come into this, be a board gamer. You don't have to dive deep into the miniature hobby aspect. You could slap these down and have a lot of fun. And the game isn't super long. It doesn't have a huge footprint. It looks good. But you can play a game, and this game's an hour and a half tops. You know.
Yeah, once you get comfortable with your cards and how the game flows, 90 minutes is about what we expect for the average game.
Yeah, and that's not out of line for any board game in any way. And you just have a ball because you don't have to overthink it, and it takes away a lot of those war game aspects that are just like, oh my god, okay, where's the ruler? Okay, I got to move this around. So no, this game's awesome. So the core set's out. Obviously, we've already grabbed that, and we've seen a lot of new stuff coming down the pike. What's coming out next, Andy? It's all out now, right now.
Yeah,
obviously.
So the core sets came out in June, so you can find that anywhere. We have expansion squad packs, which are pre-built squads that are ready to go. So you can play them right out of the pack if they're your favorite characters. You can also mix and match.
Obi-Wan's the best.
You got Obi-Wan and his 212 clones, General Grievous, Count Dooku squad packs. We've got Cad Bane and Padme Amidala coming in the near future. We have Mace Windu and Mother Talzin and her Night Sisters.
I can't wait for those Night Sisters.
They're very cool. And then, of course, we're going to be moving on from the Clone Wars and kind of expanding into
old trilogy,
the original trilogy with the Galactic Civil War. We actually have Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader and their squads that are going to be the first releases for that in the case over there.
Oh, yeah.
So you can take a look at that.
Oh,
yeah.
And could we take one home?
Not those ones. No, they're one of a kind.
That's
but
awesome.
one of the really fun things about Shatterpoint and the way that squads and strike teams work is that we can explore all these different eras. And we can do so by just focusing on a couple of characters. We don't need a huge backdrop of things to cover because it's a skirmish game. And you can mix and match your different characters together to make things work.
Can you mix eras? No,
you
right?
can mix eras with your strike team.
Right.
So when you build a team to come to play a game of Shatterpoint, you build 2 squads. And squads are composed of a primary unit, a secondary unit, and a supporting unit. So, for example, Asajj Ventress, Kalani, and the B1 battle droids. So Asajj is the primary, Kalani is the secondary, B1s are the supporting.
Right.
That's a full squad. Now, all of the members of a squad have to be from the same era. So Clone Wars era, Galactic Civil War era, Rise of the First Order era, all that stuff.
Right.
However, each of your squads can be from an entirely different era. So, for example, you could take Asajj's squad and pair it with Darth Vader's squad from the Galactic Civil War if you wanted to.
Oh, it got real. It got real right there.
So there is a decent amount of player choice and flexibility when it comes to how your full strike team is assembled, and you can tell those stories.
Awesome.
Wait a second. I caught something you just ran by. Rise of the First Order era?
It's an era that exists. It's an era that exists.
Are you giving us a tease here?
I don't think so, because Lucasfilm has.
Are you saying Mandos might be coming?
That would be more High Republic.
I want a Mandalorian set with Grogu.
That would be more of a High Republic era, which is also possible.
He's thinking Mandalorian,
Grogu and Mando.
Yeah.
Oh, you cannot say you do not see a Mando and a Grogu, Mandalorian.
I want a Grogu.
And we've actually we did a big presentation at Adepticon back in March, and we did actually show that the very first Shatterpoint mini we sculpted as a proof of concept was the Mandalorian.
Yeah, I actually did see those. But yeah, that's awesome. I mean, and we're gonna have a ton of fun with all of that. I can't wait to get Bo-Katan. Well, she's already on the table anyway, but I mean, later Bo-Katan and all that stuff. Guys, listen, Shatterpoint's awesome. If this didn't convince you, I don't know what will. This game is honestly amazing. It adds enough board game elements to it. It gets rid of a lot of old conventions, but also you can just slap it on the table, go and have a good time, and you don't have to. You really don't even have to overthink it. You can just have a good time and have a game, and not sit here and get into the nitty-gritty of war games.
And it's not going to take you all day to play it.
It's not going to take you as I get old, especially those maybe you get older and you don't have like 15 hours to play a war game. Because I used to be a war gamer, I can't go and bust out like 15 armies and play like all day long. It's just impossible for me. So having a game like this that gives me that same drip feed of all that action is amazing, guys. Check out Atomic Mass Games. They have both the demo booths here for here. We have another video about Crisis Protocol. Both are amazing games. Check them out. They're honestly, these are some of the best minis I've seen in 8-bits for a lot of stuff, guys. So come out, check it out. They're all available now. Will's the best. He will tell you all about it, I'm sure, for probably the 2000s time. But that's okay. It's Gen Con. That's what we do. Until then, of course, always pick Obi-Wan. No. Hello there.